Peace, peace, beautiful people. I say ancestors known and unknown. I say gods known and unknown. I say, what are we? Wednesday, Mercury, Hermes, the spirits of luck, the spirits of commerce, the spirits of financial gain, expansion, communication, evolution of the mentalities, sacred arts, esoteric material, etc. That was a lot of words. Greetings. Druid number 9, greatest of the 9, council of the 9, the transmission about a particular terminology or a particular concept. It's called Master of None. I'm not talking about Aziz Ansari's show, which is hilarious on Netflix. I'm talking about the concept of being a master of none. What is so important about being a master of none? Well, let's start with the school system. When you're a child, I can only speak from the American perspective, okay? When you're a child, you start, if you start public education, you go from kindergarten, you progress on to 1st through 5th, yes? Then from that, you go from 6 to 8, yes? Then from that, you go from 9 to 12. With luck and the right organization and arrangement and fortune and all of that, you go on to college. With more luck, and it really translates to money and connections. With more of that, you go on to masters, or further education. All my point is, there is a grid of things that you have to encounter to get to the next level. So bringing it back to school, throughout the public education system, you learn that you're good at certain things but bad at others. Students quickly familiarize themselves with, I'm nice at math, but I can't write a paper to save my ass. Or I can write, but I get a little hesitant and I get some anxiety around math. It's the same type of thing. So, how does this all tie in? Well, when you go on to college, most of the universities require you to choose a major. Think of those two words, major, master. Both of them are dependent on Ma, the great cosmic universe, the great triple blackness of space. All that means in this case is that they are originators, master, matriarch, maritime. All of these words have to do with a mother type of energy or a nurturing type of energy. So, being a master, let's not say master. That's too nasally. Okay? Master. So being a master, or one of the original universe, one of the great space, how can you be a master? And we just came up with our own definition there. Let's do it again together. How can you be a representative of the cosmic blackness of the universe? And I'm not even really talking melanated and non-melanated people. I'm talking about conceptually. How can you take Ma, who is timeless, who's always been here with us? How can you take the energy of Ma and place it within something artificial? You understand what I mean? So, when people say, I have my master's in a particular thing, yeah, they're referring to a degree, but have they mastered the concept? Of course not. It's really impossible. This is so frustrating because I wasn't there, and we don't want to get into the habit of using a modern lens to look at an ancient mindset. But if you really think about it, how can you really master something and say that no other principle, no additional knowledge, nothing is going to change about it? That doesn't make sense universally. Okay? So, bringing it back to the school timeline, you obtain this diploma to hopes to get this degree, and I'm really centering on further education because that's when all the master's talk and all that starts to come in, okay? So if you think about it, being a master of none, it sounds bad, as I was telling a friend of mine the other day. It sounds bad. What have you mastered? That sounds like a prestigious question, does it not? So, what have you mastered? What is your mastery? what is, in 300, he said, what is your profession, right? Clearly, those guys had mastered warfare and killing. However, to the modern, relevant perspective of things, there's no way you can master anything without your physical, 3D infested human body getting involved. So the idea of even saying that you run shit and that you've mastered it, the only way that they fixate us in that mentality is through hopes for a career and hopes for finance. That way, let's say you graduate when you're 21, all right? When you're 23, let's say you have made all the right connections, you've picked up all the right phone calls, you've had a little bit of luck, you've used some intelligence, and now you're doing a job that's precisely in flux with what you went to school for. It doesn't happen that neatly anymore in the rat race we call the States, all right? However, think about that. It happens to a few people. You know, you went to school for business administration, then you get out and you got some paid internship in a business firm. You know, things like that happen. And I'm not hating at all. It's just so rare that you fall into exactly what you want to do for the remaining decades of your life, and you don't even know what you've mastered. You don't even know. I'm not saying you people that are listening. The average person really doesn't know much. I mean, like, if you really think about what knowledge is and like what teams your intellect, what causes you to ask questions, people naturally fear what they don't understand, you know. So it just gets kind of crazy when we approach this. And anyway, let me go ahead and wrap up part one. Okay, so the science of being a master of none is being a student of all. Again, the science of mastering none, the end game of being a master of none, is being a student of all. Once you master something, you're symbolically telling your spirit, which should be a conduit for knowledge, for action, for fire in the sense of knowledge and initiation. Your spirit should always be doing that. So once you master something, symbolically you're extinguishing the fire of knowledge. And that's not cool. All right. Secondly, becoming a student of all doesn't mean... See, once again, it all starts in the education grid. You know, and I won't say any names, but, you know, I have friends now that you can talk to them about almost anything because they're very intelligent people, you know. But the minute you start to talk about, I'm not even going to say spiritual things. The minute you start to say things and you say, well, it doesn't have to have a point. It doesn't have to have a fixated, you know, logical result. They get bothered by that because their whole framework of knowing something, the way they became masters of their craft, was that everything had to have a particular reason. When you strive to be a master of none, now guys, don't get me wrong, master of none doesn't mean be a fucking idiot, don't do anything. All it means is don't let your ego become so saturated that you feel like in your physical self you've mastered anything. I don't care if you've been doing it since you were 3 years old. You know every mechanic of how to shoot a jump shot. You know every single muscle to tense up when you're about to make a collision in football. You know, if you know how to position your foot the right way to hit a soccer ball so when it hits, it spins towards the goal in a particular fashion. All of those are acquired skills that through repetition and muscle memory, yeah, you've got it down, but you still haven't mastered that element, you see. Now, you know, sports is a little different. I'm talking more along the lines of, you know, this whole school thing, this whole very arrogant relationship we have with knowledge because we want to master everything and not study shit. And study doesn't mean just, you know, study to the test, you know, just get it done so I can forget it. It's not that type. I'm talking intense empirical study. That's not common in today. So, leaving you guys in part one, we want to become a master of none so we can become a student of all. Okay? When you think about children, children are running around happy as can be before they feel the fangs of indoctrination and classism and my toy's better than yours and your Christmas sucks. I mean, I've heard kids, if you ever worked in the education system, I've heard kids say some really hurtful things to each other. And it's not because they mean to. They're not aware of the force behind what they're saying. They're not aware of the psychological ramifications, But because everything is on instant access and because we live in such a range of socioeconomic incomes, kids just feel entitled to say the shit that their environment provides them to say, And I noticed this also with the whole Christmas thing. I'm not getting too off topic, but if you think about Christmas, not just Christmas, the idea of presents, it's not rocket science to realize that some kids are going to get more presents than others. Some kids aren't going to get any presents. And that's a very sad thing to look forward to. But when you think about it, those kids getting all those presents and making other children feel bad, it's really fucked up. But